Okay, so today we're going to take a look at synthetic division to divide polynomials. And synthetic division, it does the same thing as long division or polydoku, but it gives you kind of a trick, rather, to do it. And it's really fascinating that this trick works. And so I want you to take a look at it. So we start by setting up, by looking here at the number that we're dividing. And we want to start with the 0 of that number. What when we put it in for x would make that equal to 0? And in this problem, that's a -3. So I'm going to write a -3, and then I put this little box around it. And not a full box, kind of a corner around it. Now the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to write the numbers of these coefficients. We don't want any of the x's in there in this kind of division. We don't see any of those x's. We just want the coefficients. So as I go down this list, I'm going to write my coefficients here. So the first coefficient is a 1. This is a -5, a -29, and a -15. Okay, you'll notice that when I divide with this method, I'm not going to have any of the variables in there. I'm not going to have any of my exponents in. The next thing that we want to do before we start dividing is we're going to draw a line here just to kind of separate our work. Now, once we get started, we're going to repeat the same sort of steps in this. Okay, so the first thing is we always will add in this direction, and then we'll do something else in a minute. So when we add, or we bring down 1 down here, now I'm going to multiply it by this -3. So 1 times a -3 is a -3. I add in this direction, which will be a -8, and then I multiply it by -3, which is a 24. I add in this direction, here, a -5, right? So this will become a 15. I add in this direction, and when I get a 0, what it means is there's no remainder. So now what we have to do is we took all the numbers we took all the variables out of this problem. For our answer, we're going to put them back in. So up here at what we were dividing by, and we're going to decrease the exponent by 1. So this will be x squared minus 8x minus 5. And there's our answer for synthetic division. Let's take a look at another one. Now, remember, we want to start by finding what x will make this divisor equal to 0. And in this case, that's a 2. So I'm going to put a 2, put that little corner around it. That's my starting point. Then what I want to do is write the coefficients for each one of these terms. So here it will be 1, -4, 2, 5. Remember that I'm not writing any variables or any exponents here, just those coefficients. Okay, I start by bringing down this 1. Then I multiply this number by 2. Put it here. I add in this direction, so -4 plus 2 is a -2. I divide it, or not divide it, multiply it by this 2. I add in this direction, and I multiply it by 2. 2 times a -2 is a -4. I add in this direction. Okay, now remember this last number here is our remainder. So the last thing that we need to do is say, well, what does this mean? What is our answer going to be? So I want to put some variables back onto this. We started with an x cubed. So we're going to start with our answer with an x squared minus 2x minus 2 And then this 1 at the end, we do just like we would with numbers. That remainder is going to go over what we were dividing by. So this here will be our final answer. Okay, let's take a look at one more example. Now remember, we always start by asking what x would make this part of our division problem equal to 0. And in this case, that's a 2. So we put a 2 in that corner. Okay, now our next step is always to take a look at those coefficients, right? And we list those out. But I want you to notice something really important here. We start with an x4. There is no x3. So we have to still make sure that we put something there so that this magic of synthetic division will still work. So we're going to list our coefficients. We have a 1 on x4. We don't have an x3, so we have to put a 0 there. Okay, this 0 is really important. Make sure you don't forget that. And then we keep going. We have a -4 and a 2 and finally a 5. Okay, now remember our rhythm for synthetic division always goes the same. We bring down this number, multiply it by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. We add in this direction. 0 plus 2 is 2. We multiply it by that 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. We add in this direction and then multiply it by 2. 0 times 2 is 0. We add in this direction and then multiply it by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. We add in this direction. I'm going to circle that because it's my last number. It's my remainder. And when we get our answer, we need to put those variables and those variables with exponents back in. So we started with an x to the 4th. We're going to go down 1 from that. So this will be x cubed plus 2x squared. X is going to have a 0, so we can write it as 0x, but that's the same as 0. So we're just going to leave that off. But now notice, this was x. This will be the no coefficient, so make sure that your numbers line up. And then we have that remainder, 9 over what we were dividing by. This here will be our final answer. Okay, so that is synthetic division. Remember, write this in the corner, set up your coefficients, and then you're bringing it down, multiplying, add straight down, multiply it by the 2, add straight down, and kind of keep going in that pattern. Okay.